We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You are listening to The Underground Marketing Conspiracy, a secret ritual where entrepreneurs acquire highly classified and confidential business knowledge that the top 1% of income earners don't want you to know. And now, your host, Maddie Milligan.
What is going on, my fellow conspirator and conspirators? Welcome to the Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Ooh. I want to talk to you about going all in and the importance of this. The importance of not half-stepping. The importance of choosing one thing and focusing all of your resources on just that one thing. In the ClickFunnels community, Russell Brunson, he has this inner circle, and he has 100 people, and I believe they pay $50,000 a year to get into his inner circle. And the first thing he tells them is, all right, so here's the deal. You're going to choose one funnel, and you're going to focus on that one funnel only until you get it to $1 million. And you can't do anything else until you take that one funnel and until that one hits $1 million. And he tells them that. And the majority of the people in that who do that are very successful. They end up hitting $1 million. I think he has a very high success rate with that. And even then, if you don't make $1 million, you make several $100,000. It's still a lot of money. So when I left my job, right before actually, I had the decision where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of dabbling in this business thing. I have this full-time job that I'm doing. I'm either going to go all in and I'm going to become the CEO of this company, or I'm going to go off on my own. I'm going to struggle through obscurity. No one's going to know who I am. I'm going to fail a lot. I'm going to be very lonely. But I'm at least going to do something on my own. And I'm going to choose that one thing. And I'm just going to try and do it big, right? Because I was kind of dabbling in a few different things. I've tried all sorts of different businesses. And I know what other people do when they do their businesses, right? And I want to talk about dabbling. I first came across this idea in this book, Mastery, by George Leonard. This is one of my favorite books. It's such a small little book. I'm holding it right now. It's the title is Mastery. Subtitle is The Keys to Long-Term Success, or the Keys to Success and Long-Term Fulfillment. And there's this Leonardo da Vinci man on the front. And man, I love this book. So in this book, he talks about the dabbler, but before that, I really have to get into this other idea, which he calls the mastery curve. So when people think about success, they think about it as a graph, right? If you think about it as a graph, on the y-axis going up, that's the amount of skill. And then the x-axis is time. And it kind of goes in this straight line. It's like, oh, over time, you just increase in skill. The more and more you practice, the more skill you're going to have. But it doesn't work like that. What happens is you start something and you basically get a little bit better, and then you get stuck on these plateaus for a long time. You don't see yourself improving. And then if you just keep working at it, you'll eventually have that breakthrough and you're going to get a little bit better. But then you're going to stay on that plateau for a while. And if you keep working towards it over and over and over again, you'll just keep having these plateaus and then these little blips where you're improving, plateau, blip. And after you, apparently, according to Malcolm Gladwell and in Robert Greene's book, his own book, Mastery, which is another book on mastery, it takes approximately 10,000 hours to become a master, to achieve, quote-unquote, mastery. I think mastery as well is something that's greatly lacking in our society. I love Robert Greene's book, Mastery, because he goes super deep into that. And he talks about all these different masters throughout time. Like I just mentioned, Leonardo da Vinci was one of them. He talks about Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. He talks about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. He talks about this one pilot as well. There's a lot of women examples too. He talks about Coco Chanel. I think that's in Laws of Human Nature, but there's a few female examples he uses as well. So it's not just these male masters, but specifically as a man, I think mastery is one of the most important parts of being a man, right? Picking one thing and trying to become the best at it. And even if you don't become the best, the fact that you have something where it's your aim throughout your entire life, That's super important, and that's really missing in society for men. Really great book that even goes further on this. If you're a man, highly recommend this book if you're a dude. This guy, Jack Donovan, this book called The Way of Men, absolutely amazing. One of the keys that he talks about is mastery. And from what I recall, there's actually 4 main pillars that he actually goes through. I'm not going to go too deep into that. I'll talk another day, though, on that book and really just the subject of manliness at some point, because being like a manly man is something that's very important. I've read a lot of books on being a man, like Way of the Superior Man by David Data, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by, I think his name is something Gillette. I don't remember what it is. That's a really good book. There's another book called Sperm Wars as well, which is really good. The Red Queen by Matt Ridley. These are all really good books that talk about men. Oh, the Little Black Book of Violence is absolutely amazing as well. If you're a guy, and yeah, that book doesn't tell, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're telling people to go out and fight. No, I'm not saying that. That book isn't even about that. That book is actually how to avoid fighting, right? How to avoid what they call these monkey dances, which you have with other people when you're trying to step up. But again, mastery is something that's greatly lacking in our society. So back to the original mastery book that I was talking about by George Leonard. And again, this guy was into Aikido, like one of the Aikido masters, which is a form of, I think it's martial arts, or I don't remember exactly what it is, but I think he draws a lot on, it is a form of martial arts and like Zen philosophy. But there's 3 different examples of how people go through stuff, right? So there's the dabbler. So the dabbler really goes out and they look for these like novel stimulation, right? And they go from one thing to another. So they approach whatever it is, a new career, a new sport, new relationship, whatever, with lots of enthusiasm. And they love the rituals of like getting ready and getting all the new equipment and learning the new lingo and the shine of newness. And then once they get over that, they lose interest and they just move on to the next thing, right? They face plateaus. They're really quickly to move on to a new activity, and they restart the cycle where it's like, all right, cool, it gets shiny. Oh my God, exciting. Yay. Not as enthusiastic, on to the next thing, right? And they're just like, maybe I'll do this. That's not cool. Maybe I'll do that. That's not cool. Maybe I'll do this. And they're just dabbling in all sorts of things. So that's the dabbler. Then there's the obsessive. The obsessive. The obsessive is a bottom line type of person, not one to settle for the second best. He or she knows results are what count. It doesn't matter how you get them, just as long as you get them fast. Obsessive focus can't even read. Obsessives focus entirely on goals without regard for the process. All right? The obsessive is constantly looking for shortcuts and hacks, while the master is committed to the long cut, right? To the long-term success and fulfillment, all right? And he gives some examples of obsessive musicians, only motivated to practice if there is a pending competition, audition, or grade. Constantly compare their skills to others. Seek constant reassurance and validation. All right. Then there's the hacker. The hacker is willing to stay on the plateau indefinitely. He doesn't mind skipping stages essentially to the development of mastery if he can just go out and hack around with fellow hackers. He's the physician or teacher who doesn't bother going to professional meetings. He's the tennis player who develops a solid forehand and figures he can make do with a ragged backhand, right? So you're basically focusing your strengths on something, right? You're not what even then Robert Greene talks about, right? You're not focusing on your weaknesses in some cases, right? You're practicing that one thing, right? I see this with a lot of hockey players, for example, where they'll have a really good wrist shot, but then they can't do a slap shot when they should really be taking a slap shot in some cases, right? So when you kind of have lopsided skills, I know a lot of people are like, okay, focus on one thing or one kind of skill, but when you're kind of achieving mastery, in some cases you do need to kind of lean into your weaknesses, otherwise your skills do become lopsided, right? So that's essentially what the hacker is, and a little bit more. Hacker musicians, for example, they rarely practice, feel their skills are good enough, are resistant to push themselves out of their comfort zones, right? So those are kind of the 3 different ways that you could fail, right? Those aren't really the true master's paths, right? So whatever you choose, though, you need to go all in on it, right? So if you want to become a musician, you need to go all in on that one thing. So whatever it is, you just need to choose that one thing and really just go all in on it, right? Focus all of your efforts on improving and becoming a master just at that one thing, right? And I want to give you guys a few more examples of stuff. So one of my favorite shows from a few years ago was the show Boardwalk Empire. And it's kind of this gangster show that existed. It takes place apparently during the Prohibition, and there's like this main gangster dude, Nucky Thompson, played by Steve Buscemi, and he's kind of the guy in charge of all of the boardwalk and all the crime and stuff. And he still plays this public character, right? This good face where for example, there's one scene where he's meeting with these suffragettes and he's kind of playing them up, acting all friendly, and he's trying to woo them and make them happy because he works for the government. And there's this younger character who really wants to step up, this guy James Darmody, and they have kind of a falling out, but then James Darmody does some stuff behind Nucky's back, and he's like, hey man, like I want to be just like you, right? Like I want to be your right-hand man. And Nucky's not proud because James just did like this sketchy crime and made a bunch of money. And then James comes to him and he's like, you know what, dude, like you can't be half a gangster anymore, right? You can't have a foot in two worlds. Like you have to choose one thing and focus all of your efforts on that, right? And you have to really struggle, right? You have to spend a lot of time, long-term success and long-term fulfillment, right? Pick one thing and better. With me, dude, like it's building funnels and copywriting. For me, just in general, it's like internet marketing. Like I'm absolutely obsessed with it, as you guys have noticed, right? It's what I talk about all the freaking time. It's all I talk about. It's my passion. Like I found out about it and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop what I'm doing right here. I'm going to focus all of my efforts. I'm going to work for this company for a while. And then when I'm ready to go, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to go through the apprentice phase, which again is part of the book Mastery by Robert Greene. You become an apprentice from something, you learn from the masters, and then at some point you go into the active creative phase where you go out and actively create stuff yourself. So I'm in that phase right now, right? So with that, again, James Darmody, he's like, dude, like, you can't be half a gangster. When I heard that the first time, I'm like, man, it's so true. You can't be doing that, right? And even if you look at a show like Sopranos, which is another HBO show, I've seen all these HBO shows. They're best TV, honestly, especially if you're a guy. It has all these, like, male themes as well. So if you're a guy, you're really going to like this stuff. But Tony Soprano, he's kind of playing that. Like, he has his family, and then he's this gangster. And there's some times when it's like he's trying to be with his family, but it's like, nah, dude, like, he's a gangster. Like, he's in charge of the whole crime syndicate in New Jersey. Like, that's what it is, right? It's like Sopranos is a modern version of Boardwalk Empire to a certain extent. They both take place in New Jersey. So those are a couple of really good shows as well that I would totally recommend people watch as well. You can learn a lot from them in terms of themes and just writing in general. And then there's this scene in Breaking Bad that, oh man, it's such a good scene. It takes place later on. There's this character, Mike Ehrmantraut. He's not even he's like one of the lesser characters. And I've talked about this before. Breaking Bad is my favorite show. I think Mad Men is my second favorite. And then I'd say after that, it's probably The Wire. And this Better Call Saul show, though, oh man, that is a good show. It might even, honestly, like, that's why I like Breaking Bad so much, because they took a lot of these characters who weren't the main people in Breaking Bad. It's like now they're the main guys in this show, which is why I like, oh man, the acting and just the way that I've seen Vince Gilligan, the creator of the show and the head writer, the way that he actually storyboards stuff is absolutely genius. Like, I've seen this YouTube video where he goes through the process and shows how he does stuff, and I'm like, wow, it's just like absolutely genius. Where it's like, all right, it's like Act 1 and then Act 2 and then Act 3. I'm like, oh man, it's like a Shakespearean play, but in modern times, and it has a lot of Shakespearean themes as well. But Breaking Bad, there's this one guy, Mike Ehrmantraut, and he's sitting with Walter White, who's like Heisenberg, if you know the show, and he sits down, he's like, yeah, like, let me tell you the story, all right? So essentially, I used to be this beat cop, and I would get called to a lot of these domestic violence cases. And there was this one guy where I would always go, and he would always beat his wife, and he would always beat his wife, and we would go, and we would basically go there and stop it, and then he would go back to beating his wife. But this one time, He's like, my partner was sick, so it was just me. So I picked this guy up. And then the guy's in the back seat, and he's talking all sorts of smack, and he's really drunk. And we're at this one light. And usually where I'm going to turn left to go to the station, the guy just said something and just took me the wrong way. So you know what I did? I went right. And I took him in this alley. And I took him outside, and I took my gun, and I held it to him. And I'm like, this is it. It's over. And he's like, and then he started crying. He started crying like a little baby boy. And then he's like, all right. He's like, so I let him go. Put him back in the car, drove him down, let him sober up, put him back home. He's like, I thought it was over. So sure enough, a week later, I get the call. And the guy had actually killed his wife. Like, he beat her with a toaster to death. And he's like, you know what? That's the moment that I realized in life. Like, what I did there in that situation was I took a half measure when I should have taken the full measure. And you need to do that in your life, right? You can't half step anymore. Whatever it is that you're doing in your entire life, don't half step, right? Choose one thing, go all in on it, right? It's like Texas Hold'em. You go all in. If you don't know the game, what that game is, it's a poker game, right? You get 2 cards, face down, all right? It's no limit Texas Hold'em. You can bet as much as you want. There's a minimum amount of money that you can bet in there, right? So you can buy in with whatever you want. If it's a cash game, you can bet whatever you want, right? And if you want to bluff someone or you have a really strong hand, you put all your chips in, right? You go all in. And whatever it is in your life that you want to do, you need to choose one thing and do that, all right? And again, life isn't about these short little wins and stuff. I don't want you to dabble in stuff. I don't want you to be a hacker, all right? I don't want you to be the obsessive. I want you to become a master. So choose one thing in your life and just practice it over and over again. And if you do that, you'll be fulfilled and you'll be successful in the long term. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Underground Marketing Conspiracy. If you did, I want you to consider subscribing. Consider leaving a review as well. Maybe you want to talk to someone about this and share this episode with them as well. Should you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email them to me at undergroundmarketingconspiracy@gmail.com. My name is Matty Milligan. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit mattymilligan.com. And I will see you guys next time on another episode of the Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Woo!